To our midday prayer for October 27th. Today we're going to be reading 2 Kings chapter 4 through 6. Not quite all of 6. We'll stop a little bit short of the end of 6 because of the way that the story works and the chapters end. So let's get to it. Our help is in the name of the Lord, who made heaven and earth. From the rising of the sun to its setting, my name is great among the nations, says the Lord of hosts. The Lord's name be praised. The name of the Lord be praised. All right, chapter 4 of 2 Kings. Elisha has now taken over from Elijah. He is the prophet of God and has had some run-ins, especially with the king of Israel, the northern country, who is a terrible person just like his father and his grandfather. His grandmother is still alive, Jezebel, even though it's prophesied that she would die a violent death and dogs would lick up her blood. But we're not going to see that until tomorrow's readings. So something to look forward to. Some of these things may sound a little bit familiar. A lot of the stories that we heard from Elijah are also kind of attributed to Elisha in his own way with certain variations. So if it sounds familiar, there's a reason. So listen for God's word to speak to you. Now the wife of a member of the company of prophets cried to Elisha, "Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that your servant feared Yahweh, but a creditor has come to take my 2 children as slaves." Elisha said to her, "What shall I do for you? Tell me, what do you have in the house?" She answered, "Your servant has nothing in the house except a jar of oil." He said, "Go outside, borrow vessels from all your neighbors, empty vessels, and not just a few. Then go in and shut the door behind you and your children, and start pouring into all these vessels. When each is full, set it aside." So she left him, shut the door behind her and her children, and they kept bringing vessels to her, and she kept pouring. When the vessels were full, she said to her son, "Bring me another vessel." But he said to her, "There are no more." And the oil stopped flowing. She came and told the man of God, and he said, "Go, sell the oil to pay your debts. You and your children can live on the rest." One day Elisha was passing through Shunem, where a wealthy woman lived who urged him to have a meal. So whenever he passed that way, he would stop there for a meal. She said to her husband, "Look, I am sure that this man who regularly passes our way is a holy man of God. Let us make a small roof chamber with walls and put there for him a bed, a table, a chair, and a lamp, so that he can stay here whenever he comes to us." One day, when he came there, he went up to the chamber and lay down there. He said to his servant Gehazi, "Call the Shunammite woman." When he had called her, she stood before him. He said to her, "Say to her, since you have taken all this trouble for us, what may be done for you? Would you have a word spoken on your behalf to the king or to the commander of the army?" She answered, "I live among my own people." He said, "What then may be done for her?" Gehazi answered, "Well, she has no son, and her husband is old." He said, "Call her." When he had called her, she stood at the door. He said, "At this season, in due time, you shall embrace a son." She said, "No, my lord, O man of God, do not deceive your servant." The woman conceived and bore a son at that season, in due time, as Elisha had declared to her. When the child was older, he went out one day to his father among the reapers. He complained to his father, "Oh, my head, my head." The father said to his servant, "Carry him to his mother." He carried him and brought him to his mother. The child sat on her lap until noon, and then he died. She went up and laid him on the bed of the man of God and closed the door on him and left. Then she called to her husband and said, "Send me one of the servants and one of the donkeys, so that I might quickly go to the man of God and come back again." He said, "Why go to him today? Is it neither new moon nor Sabbath?" She said, "It will be all right." Then she saddled the donkey and said to her servants, "Urge the animal on. Do not hold back from me unless I tell you." So she set out and came to the man of God at Mount Carmel. When the man of God saw her coming, he said to Gehazi, his servant, "Look, there's the Shunammite woman. Run at once to meet her and say to her, 'Are you all right? Is your husband all right? Is the child all right?'" She answered, "It is all right." Then she came to the man of God in the mountain. She caught hold of his feet. Gehazi approached to push her away, but the man of God said, "Let her alone, for she is in bitter distress. Yahweh has hidden it from me and has not told me." Then she said, "Did I ask my Lord for a son? Did I not say, 'Do not mislead me'?" She said to Gehazi, "Gird up your loins and take my staff in..." He said to Gehazi, "Gird up your loins and take my staff in your hand and go. If you meet anyone, give no greeting, and if anyone greets you, do not answer. I will not leave without you." She rose up and So he rose up and followed her. Gehazi went on ahead and laid the staff on the face of the child, but there was no sound of life in him. He came back to meet him and told him, "The child is not awakened." When Elisha came into the house, he saw the child lying dead on his bed. So he went in and closed the door on the two of them and prayed to Yahweh. Then he got up on the bed and lay upon the child, putting his mouth open upon his mouth, his eyes upon his eyes, and his hands upon his hands. And when he lay bent over him, and the flesh of the child became warm. He got down, walked once to and fro in the room, then got up again and bent over him. The child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. Elisha summoned Gehazi and said, "Call the Shunammite woman." So he called her. When she came to him, he said, "Take your son." She came and fell at his feet, bowing to the ground. She took her son and left. When Elisha returned to Gilgal, there was a famine in the land. As the company of prophets was sitting before him, he said to his servant, "Put the large pot on and make some stew for the company of prophets." One of them went out into the field to gather herbs. He found a wild vine and gathered from it a lapful of wild gourds, and came and cut them up into the pot of stew, not knowing what they were. They served some for the men to eat, but while they were eating the stew, they cried out, "Oh, man of God, there's death in the pot." They could not eat it. He said, "Then bring some flour." He threw it into the pot and said, "Serve the people and let them eat." And there was nothing harmful in the pot. A man came from Baal Shalishah, bringing food from the first fruits to the man of God, 20 loaves of barley and fresh ears of grain in his sack. Elisha said, "Give it to the people and let them eat." But the servant said, "How can I set this before 100 people?" So he repeated, "Give it to the people and let them eat. For thus says Yahweh, they shall eat and have some left." Set it before them. They ate and had some left according to the word of Yahweh. Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Aram, was a great man and in high favor with his master, because by him Yahweh had given victory to Aram. The man, though a mighty warrior, suffered from leprosy. Now the Arameans, on one of their raids, had taken a young girl captive from the land of Israel, and she served Naaman's wife. She said to her mistress, "If only my lord were with the prophet who is in Samaria, he would cure him of his leprosy." So Naaman went in and told his lord just what the girl from the land of Israel had said, and the king of Aram said, "Go then, and I will send along a letter to the king of Israel." He went, taking with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 sets of garments. He brought the letter to the king of Israel, which read, "When this letter reaches you, know that I have sent to you my servant Naaman, that you may cure him of his leprosy." When the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his clothes and said, "Am I God to give death or life, that this man sends word to me to cure a man of his leprosy? Just look and see how it is he is trying to pick a quarrel with me." For when Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes, he sent a message to the king. "Why have you torn your clothes? Let him come to me, that he may learn that there is a prophet in Israel." So Naaman came with his horses and chariots and halted at the entrance of Elisha's house. Elisha sent a messenger to him, saying, "Go, wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh shall be restored, and you shall be clean." But Naaman became angry and went away, saying, "I thought that for me he would surely come out and stand and call on the name of Yahweh his God, and would wave his hand over the spot and cure the leprosy. Are not Albana, and Pharpah, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean?" He turned and went in a rage. But his servants approached him and said to him, "Father, if the prophet had commanded you to do something difficult, would you not have done it? How much more then when all he said to you was, 'Wash and be clean'?" So he went down and immersed himself 7 times in the Jordan, according to the word of the man of God. His flesh was restored like the flesh of a young boy, and he was clean. Then he returned to the man of God, he and all his company. He came and stood before him and said, "Now I know there is no God in all the earth except in Israel. Please accept a present from your servant." But he said, "As the Lord lives, whom I serve, I will accept nothing." He urged him to accept, but he refused. Then Naaman said, "If not, please let 2 mule loads of earth be given to your servant, for your servant will no longer offer burnt offering or sacrifice to any god except Yahweh. But may Yahweh pardon your servant on one count. When my master goes into the house of Rimmon to worship there, leaning on my arm, I bow down in the house of Rimmon. When I do Bound down in the house of Rimmon, may Yahweh pardon your servant on this one count. He said to him, go in peace. But when Naaman had gone from him a short distance, Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of God, thought, my master has let that Aramean Naaman off too lightly by not accepting from him what he offered. As Yahweh lives, I will run after him and get something out of him. So Gehazi went after Naaman. When Naaman saw someone running after him, he jumped down from the chariot to meet him and said, is everything all right? He replied, yes, but my master has sent me to say, 2 members of a company of prophets have just come to me from the hill country of Ephraim. Please give them a talent of silver and 2 changes of clothing. Naaman said, please accept 2 talents. He urged him and tied up 2 talents of silver and 2 bags with 2 changes of clothing and gave them to 2 of his servants who carried them in front of Gehazi. When he came to the citadel, he took the bags from them and stored them inside. He dismissed the men, and they left. He went in and stood before his master, and Elisha said to him, where have you been, Gehazi? He answered, your servant has not gone anywhere at all. But he said to him, did I not go with you in spirit when someone left his chariot to meet you? Is this a time to accept money and to accept clothing, olive orchards and vineyards, sheep and oxen and male and female slaves? Therefore leprosy, the leprosy of Naaman, shall cling to you and to your descendants forever. So he left his presence, flawless, as white as snow. Now the company of prophets said to Elisha, as you see, the place where we live under your charge is too small for us. Let us go to the Jordan, and let us collect logs there, 1 for each of us, and build a place there for us to live. He answered, do so. Then one of them said, please come with your servants. And he answered, I will. So he went with them. When they came to the Jordan, they cut down trees. But as one was felling a log, his axe head fell into the water. He cried, alas, master, it was borrowed. And the man of God said, where did it fall? When he showed him the place, he cut off a stick and threw it there and made the iron float. He said, pick it up. So he reached out his hand and took it. Once, when the king of Aram was at war with Israel, he took counsel with his officers. He said, at such and such a place shall be my camp. The man of God sent word to the king of Israel, take care not to pass this place, because the Arameans are going down there. The king of Israel sent word to the place of which the man of God spoke. More than once or twice he warned such a place, so that it was on the alert. The mind of the king of Aram was greatly perturbed because of this. He called his officers and said to them, now tell me, who among us sides with the king of Israel? And one of his officers said, no one, my lord king. It is Elisha, the prophet of Israel, who tells the king of Israel the words that you speak in your bedchamber. He said, go and find where he is. I will send and seize him. He was told, he is in Dothan. So he sent horses and chariots there and a great army. And they came by night and surrounded the city. When attendants of the man of God rose early in the morning and went out, an army with horses and chariots was all around the city. The servant said, alas, master, what shall we do? He replied, do not be afraid, for there are more with us than there are with them. And Elisha prayed, O Yahweh, please open his eyes that he may see. So Yahweh opened the eyes of the servant, and he saw. The mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. When the Arameans came down against him, Elisha prayed to Yahweh and said, "Strike this people, please, with blindness." So he struck them with blindness, as Elisha had asked. Elisha said to them, "This is not the way, and this is not the city. Follow me, and I will bring you to the man whom you seek." And he led them to Samaria. As soon as they entered Samaria, Elisha said, "O Yahweh, open the eyes of these men so that they may see." Yahweh opened their eyes, and they saw that they were inside Samaria. When the king of Israel saw them, he said to Elisha, "Father, shall I kill them? Shall I kill them?" He answered, "No." "Did you capture with your sword and your bow those whom you want to kill? Set food and water before them so that they may eat and drink. Let them go to their master." So he prepared for them a great feast. After they ate and drank, he sent them on their way. And they went to their master. And the Arameans no longer came riding into the land of Israel. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. So we have a couple interesting stories. We have this Shunammite woman who we will actually see again, so keep her in mind. She shows grace to Elisha, and makes him a room in their house. And he gives her a son miraculously that she doesn't ask for. But then when the son dies, you have this heartbreaking thing where she goes to him and says, "It is well." This is where we get the hymn, "It is well with my soul." And she begs him. She tells him, "Why did you break my heart? Why did you give me a son that would die?" And Elisha heals him. We have the widow's oil, which, again, another widow and oil, very similar to the one with Elijah. Just an interesting story as well of God's providence of the lease. Interesting story about Elisha purifying the pot of stew, which is really interesting, and just kind of throw some flour in it, says it's fine. And feeding 100 men. Sounds very similar to Jesus' feeding of 4,000 or 5,000. We have the healing of Naaman, which is a little bit more better known. Fascinating story about healing a foreign general, and he almost not being healed because of his pride. He doesn't want to do the simple thing that Elisha asked him to do. But he is healed. And his healing actually draws him to God. He becomes a worshiper of God. He takes soil with him because the common understanding of the day is gods are connected to the area. So if he takes some of this soil, this is Yahweh soil, he's going to take it with him, and he'll have a place where he can worship God, not in Israel, but in another place, which is fascinating. And it's all because of a little servant girl who just simply says, I wish my master would go to Israel because there's a man who could actually heal them. Very kind of missional. We can be those little girls, just to speak to people and say, I know you're looking for healing. I know somewhere where you can find it. Gehazi, Elisha's servant, is greedy. Goes after Naaman for some extra prizes, and because of it, he gets Naaman's leprosy. We have the miracle of the axe head, another just sort of miraculous thing, and this Aramean attack that is thwarted because God has this huge army. What a wonderful sort of thing, this prayer that Elisha has for his servant, that he would see exactly what was going on, because as far as his human eyes could see, they were lost. But in getting a glimpse of God's sight, we saw the hills full of angels ready to strike down these Arameans. Wonderful thing. And